What is going on, guys? This is Miasin. So earlier today, I made a video on the OCG metagame breakdown number 2, and one thing that I said I was gonna make a full video on was Burning Draw, because it's actually a very interesting side deck card that is being played in Salamangreat right now, and for a very good reason. I mean, the card is always treated as a Salamangreat card, so there is inherent synergy. Now, before we go any further, I would really appreciate you if you could smash the like and subscribe button. It means the world to me, and now let's proceed. Alrighty, so Burning Draw is currently seeing play in the Salamangreat side deck, like I said, only for going second against fire-based strategies such as Snake Eye and Fire King, because if your opponent controls more cards than you do, you can target a link monster your opponent controls and then draw cards equal to the link rating. So in other words, you can draw anywhere between like 1 to 6 cards, depending on the link monster that you're targeting, which is pretty nice. The one drawback is that, of course, it is a hard once per turn, and you cannot normal or special summon monsters the turn you activate this card except fire monsters. And even though the fire decks are pretty good, shockingly enough, they do require the usage of non-fire monsters to function sometimes, such as, I don't know, Link Rebo or SP Little Knight to break boards, etc. So not being able to summon them is extremely annoying, and that's the reason why Burning Draw might be a little less good than you think. With that being said, it does have some nice applications. So for example, if you're targeting an Ambler Whale or a Appaloosa, you can draw upwards of 4 cards, like I said, and you don't really have to like put back anything on the deck. Like, it's not like Phantasm Bay, for example. And if you're drawing into board breakers, it's gonna be pretty insane, because I can tell you this right now, drawing into hand traps going second is really not what you want to do, like at all. Again, this is a going second only card. It does require your opponent to have a link monster on the field. Otherwise, it is a completely dead card, so keep that in mind. It is a normal spell card, so Thrust can get it. But yeah, again, you're not trying to draw these kind of cards, you're trying to draw these ones. So if you want to break the Snake Eyes or Fire King board, they're usually the same thing. They always have cards on the field, in the hand, in the graveyard. Soul Release will take care of everything in their grave for the most part. Actually, it targets up to 5 cards in the grave and then banish them, which is pretty big. And then if you want to steal their Appaloosa, you can do so with Change of Heart or Enemy Controller or Talent, which is also very good in case your opponent has like a Masquerena, because it doesn't target. So your opponent can't really dodge the stealing of the monster. So I want to say Talent is probably one of the better ones. And Cosmic Cyclone is a full board wipe for the most part, because you banish their field spell and then that destroys every single monster on their board, and they can't do anything about it. It's a mandatory effect, and even if they summoned like an Appaloosa that cannot be destroyed by card effect off of Masquerena, it doesn't matter, because the Appaloosa would only be destroyed by the opponent's card effects, but then the Fire King Island is their own card effect, so they still die to their own card. So in other words, I think you can always see where this is going. If you want to play Burning Draw in your side deck, you really have to prioritize a strategy of playing board breakers over hand traps, because you really do not want to see these cards as your 7th, 8th, or 9 cards, because you will have like 9 cards in your hand if you're drawing 4, targeting any of these 2 monsters, or you're gonna have 8 cards if you're targeting a Deco Talker Heat Soul, but your opponent will also have like 8 to 9 cards. So do you really want to let your opponent play that far into the game? I don't know if you really want to do that, unless you have like some extremely powerful blowouts, but usually it's just gonna be like a game of 1 for 1, where you allow your opponent to go +1 or +2, and then for each card that your opponent is generating, you're also generating a card of your own. And if the cards that you're generating are not live, then you're extremely far behind, because you're doing nothing about your opponent generating a lot of interruptions on top of resources. So you have to take care of both. You have to make it so that your opponent will not have a follow-up, and you have to play through every single interruption, and to me that just feels a little difficult. And I feel like hand traps usually just do a better job, because you're ensuring that your opponent doesn't get too many plays going on, and also the end board will not have a lot of interruptions. So that's the reason why, personally, I think hand traps are better than board breakers at the current moment. But there are some board breakers that are justifiable for the most, for sure. And by the way, I do like to compare Burning Draw to cards like Hita the Fire Channeler. It's really easy to just say, oh, well, the card is insane, you definitely should play it. But Hita is one of those cards that really piss me off, because it looks like it's insane, because you discard it and then another fire monster to search a fire monster generically from your deck to your hand with higher attack than the monster you discarded. But the issue is that you cannot use non-fire monsters for the effects for the rest of the turn. So just like Burning Draw, it prevents you from really doing much and going for a big push going second. For example, you cannot go into the World Sea Dragon Zealantis OTK, because this requires a water monster. If you commit all those resources to summon that, well, I mean, you won't even be able to summon the World Sea Dragon Zealantis with Burning Draw. But if you try to go for that and you realize that it doesn't work, you're not gonna be in a very good mood. Because yes, you really cannot summon any non-fire monsters. Like the same thing with Yita the Fire Channeler. You get like your advantage up front, and then all of the drawbacks come after. But yeah, which kind of decks can play Burning Draw and not really care too much about the inconvenience? Alright, so the first one is Salamangreat, because that deck is usually locked under fire only because of Salamangreat of Fire. That card, after you search, you can only special summon fire monsters for the rest of the turn. So Salamangreat of Fire is basically the same thing as being restricted under Burning Draw, which is the reason why we've seen this card in the side deck of Salamangreat, but not in the side deck of Snake Eyes and Fire King. Obviously, this video is kind of like a discussion to see if other decks could potentially play it, but I want to say Salamangreat is the best deck at being able to do so, because again, in the grind game, quote-unquote, you can keep recycling this card over and over with Falco or Sunlight Wolf, or if Raging Phoenix really has to search it, I guess you could do that. But do keep in mind that, again, your opponent has to control more cards than you do if you want to be able to do that. Salamangreat, pretty good deck at using that. And then Infernoble, I don't really think you want to do that. Volcanic, I think, unless you're playing like other engines, should be good. I mean, maybe if you're playing like the Horus cards in Volcanic, which I know they're pretty good in that deck, it's not going to work. But apart from that, it's not the end of the world. Because one thing that you do have to know is that it reads, you cannot normal or special summon monsters the turn you activate this card except fire monsters. Not like for the rest of the turn. So you can't even like summon non-fires first and then use Burning Draw. Anyways, in Infernoid, like even after the Terminal World support, I am not sure if this card is going to be too great in them. Although it's actually not too bad because you can still go into Proxy F Magician and then Promethean Princess and then Infernoid Flood, the Link 4 Link monster. And you can actually do a lot. You can even OTK using only fire monsters in Infernoid. So it's really not the end of the world. It might actually make more sense than in any other deck here. Like, I want to say probably more sense than Salamangreat maybe. Because drawing cards in Infernoid, you know for a fact that you're not going to be drawing hand traps because you don't play hand traps in Infernoid. You only really play like board breakers or gas cards. Like, Void Imagination going second is insane, and again, you're not trying to summon non-fire monsters. You're trying to summon Infernoid Tiara or the Infernoid Evil monster, which can mill like 10 cards from the deck, which is obviously very fair design. But again, you're not going to be able to go into like a Link Rebo or Relinquished Anima, which I think is like not the end of the world. So drawing 4 cards in Infernoid going second, I will take that any day of the week. So I want to say this card should still be taken into consideration for the future, even though it's not going to necessarily be fantastic right off the bat. If you can get your hands on 3 copies of Burning Draw, it's going to be a great investment in the long run. So yeah, keep an eye out on its applications for Infernoid. And then Rescue Ace, it's kind of like the same thing as Fire King and Snake Eye. These decks are like super toolboxy. Like, sure, their engine is really just only fire monsters, but then when you look at their extra deck, they have all kinds of options that are not fire, that are really good, like SP, World Sea Dragon Zealantis, IP Masquerena, etc. All those monsters you will not be able to summon with Burning Draw. I guess you can kind of tolerate not being able to go into IP or SP, not SP, but IP going second. Not the end of the world, but no SP, no Zealantis is really a bummer. And I guess drawing into gas with Rescue Ace is good, but drawing into more hand traps with these decks, I don't really like too much. So yeah, I would try to stay far away from playing Burning Draw in these 3 decks, even though it might not be too bad. But again, in Salamangreat and Infernoid, very, very good. Now, there is one more thing that I really, really have to mention about Burning Draw, and that is a major flaw that this card has. If you have to target something like a Masquerena or SP, it might just draw nothing, because your opponent can actually just chain the Masquerena to link off it to something else, and then the monster that you targeted no longer has like a link rating on the resolution, so you can't even like verify how many cards you're about to draw, and it just resolves with no effect. Same thing with SP, your opponent can just chain the SP and then banish 2 monsters temporarily, and then your target with Burning Draw just doesn't do anything, because yes, you do have to target at activation. It doesn't all happen at resolution, unfortunately, so these 2 cards will be your biggest nightmare. But if your opponent randomly ends on like a Link 4 monster or Link 3, like Heat Soul is a big one that's you're basically always gonna see. Ambler Whale, same thing. Then it's gonna be insane. And there are some other decks, by the way, that will usually try to end on Link monsters, but unfortunately, SP being so dominant is like, it just makes it like very hard for Burning Draw to really shine too much. And that's the reason why, again, at the current moment, I cannot see Burning Draw being like a universal staple that everybody wants to play in their forward deck just to draw a bunch of cards, because there's just so many drawbacks and the likelihood of resolving it is not guaranteed. But yeah, that's it for this video. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts about this card in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.